All right, what is going on, everybody? How you doing? Welcome to another episode of Talking Buffalo, your weekday daily driver for Buffalo sports talk and more. My name is Patrick Moran. Big thank you to everyone out there, as always, for watching, for listening, following, subscribing. I appreciate you guys very, very much. This is the start of Christmas week here. Quick programming note before we dive into today's live instant reaction post-game recap. Buffalo Bills with another victory. We'll get into that in just a second. Being Christmas week, things are going to be off a little bit. We got our show, of course, here dropping Monday, normal show on Tuesday. Don't think we're going to have a show on actual Christmas morning, Wednesday. If I do, it might be some kind of reclip package. Something like that. Later in the week, I am attempting, we're going to work it out this week. But don't be surprised if I have a live show on Thursday night with my guest here, Joe from Queens. Going to be in town. We're going to hook up somewhere. We haven't figured out the schematics yet, but we're going to get together. We're going to have a live show on Thursday for the Friday episode, and then I'll have Matt Warren on at the end of the week. We're probably going to have a bonus Saturday episode to preview the Jets game. As always, for these Bills post-game shows, I am joined by Christmas sweater and all, if you're watching on the video side. Pretty dope, man. Michael Scott, nice Christmas sweater right there. Yes. Joe from Queens, who is you're Joe from Queens, but you're not in Queens right now, are you? Where you at, man? What's going on?
I'm in Rochester. I'm in Hilton right now. I'm at the in-laws' house. So my father-in-law, I think, went to bed, and my wife and her mom are out right now. They went to CVS. They have not come home yet. So there might be some noise when you get home. But the idea, and let me just set this up, because thank you for my Christmas sweater shout-out. It's one of your favorite shows, The Office. And the idea of you having a podcast on Christmas morning, can you imagine if someone woke up, oh, we gotta go and open the Christmas gifts. Well, first let's listen to Pat Moran's podcast. If someone did that to me, this is what I would say to them. Yes, see, if you watch the video side, my sweater did light up, and it has Christmas is canceled, because Christmas would be canceled if you have to listen to the Talking Buffalo podcast.
Not even a new content either. It would be something repackaged.
Yeah. Oh, it would be the best stuff. You should have just done the best of holiday edition. Anyways, I digress.
I'm doing good. A little bit of this Sunday kind of was just a weird day. It felt like a really low energy. All right, man, before we get into it, what are you cracking there? This is our ritual. Go ahead. What beer you got there?
My father-in-law, good dude, he actually lives in Hamburg, and his Mel's mom is in Rochester. They have long distance relationship, whatever you want to call it. Not really, but it's 45 minutes away. He went to Hamburg Brewery for me because I'm a good son-in-law. And he got me a 24 pack of Hamburg stuff. So it's a bunch of smorgasbord stuff. So this is a Lakeview lager. So
okay,
I'm very excited to try this. It's 5.2% alcohol, which is pretty high for a lager. I would say lagers usually are pretty low key. So I'm very excited to try this.
All right, man. Crack it up. Crack it up to a Bills victory. Cheers.
Yeah. I'm sure you were angry during this game. I can picture you were angry while I was just chilling like a villain.
I was annoyed. I was annoyed. Not gonna lie to you. I was very, very annoyed. While you try that, I want to let people know too. There's some people already leaving some comments. I will get to a couple of them throughout the show, and a handful of them we'll kind of save for the end. So stay tuned for that. Right off the back, Ride Dog says, "Merry Christmas, boys. That football was like throwing and catching a rock today. Hard to play in that kind of cold." Sure, we'll talk about that a little bit. It was that definitely was a factor. I don't think there's any team that's really built when it's that cold for being that cold. It is what it is. But I was starting to say before, it just felt like a really low energy type day. Like for me in our household, I watched the game with my wife, my son, his girlfriend. It's kind of like most games we do that now. And it just felt like the energy was lacking a little bit, which kind of, coincided with this game. The energy just lacked a little bit. But before we get into anything negative, we'll talk about the good, the bad, the ugly. We're going to hit on all that stuff today. Let's start with some good. All right, you got the nice looking Christmas hoodie on. You're at the in-laws on location.
It's actually an ugly sweater, not a hoodie. Okay, we're not unlike you who only has hoodies in your wardrobe. It is a sweater. Do you even own a sweater, or you just?
I think I might. I own 2, maybe.
Okay. All right.
Maybe, maybe
Two.
2, maybe 2. But anyway, it looks solid. And by the way, props to you for doing this live show on location. Like I said, you're not
Yeah.
at home. You're on the road this week. But I want to start with some good vibes here. Christmas week vibes, so to speak. The Bills won at the end of the day, 24-21. I mean, let's never lose fact of that. They are 7-0 at home this season. They are Howard Simon, props to him. He dug up these numbers. He's so good at that stuff. But anyway, they're 7 at home this season. They're 23-2 in their last 25 regular season games at home. They are 23-5 in the AFC East since 2020, and they're 22-3 in December and January games since 2020. Of course, those 3 losses all coming in playoff eliminations. So the Bills win. Bottom line is this, too. Christmas Day, for the first time ever, or not first time ever, but Wednesday games on Christmas, first time ever. There's 2 games that have huge ramifications for the Bills. Sure. Kansas City, Pittsburgh, Baltimore, and Houston.
Right.
If the Chiefs beat the Steelers, and if Baltimore, or if the Texans beat the Ravens, I'm sorry, if both those teams win, Texans and the Chiefs on Christmas, the Bills, when you wake up the day after Christmas, will have the number 2 seed locked in, regardless of the remaining weeks 17 and week 18 outcomes. We'll get back to that a little later in the show. Like, how will Sean McDermott handle it if the Bills essentially have nothing to play for, not just the last week, but the last 2 weeks, because they would have that number 2 seed locked in. So those are good vibes. Bad vibes, I'll say this about the win. I'll start turning this over to you. Jay Skursky, I saw a tweet just a few minutes ago. We're live not long after this game. Said he was at the press conference for Sean McDermott. He's been covering the team for a long time. Lots of Sean McDermott victory press conferences. He said Sean was about as annoyed as he's ever seen him after a win. You kind of feel like that win is going to be treated like a loss in that building this coming week. There was a lot to not like from this game, although, of course, they did win.
Yeah, I'm sure there were things that they're going to want to work on. I mean, it was a sloppy game. It happens. But, McDermott strikes me as a perfectionist. To piggyback on Skursky's comment, the one thing I noticed, I think you retweeted it, was Sean kind of threw his special teams coach under the bus with the punt. And that to me just showed you how annoyed he was, because he doesn't throw anyone ever under the bus. He's usually like, execution, I'll keep it in the house. Like, it definitely was like, I think he's very angry at his special teams coach, and the special teams has not been very good this year. So
it's a bit of a problem, and it continues to be a big problem. That's a good take, because that kind of caught me a little bit too.
Yeah.
He kind of more or less threw Matthew Smiley under the bus. It was a blunder. I thought at first I was just tipping my cap to the Patriots. Hey, they made a good play. But it turns out they were supposed to be in a defense, and they were in their punt and return.
Yeah, I'll say this, just to go back to your opening, like the lethargic energy in your household, etc.
Yeah,
I think you feel that a little bit, because the stakes right now, I don't know, they don't feel that they don't feel that big to me right now, because I'm just assuming they're getting the 2nd seed, and that's it. Like, it's going to take a lot to get the 1st seed. I just feel like I can't see the Chiefs losing the next 2 games. I know they've had their struggle. I just can't see it. And so, like, right now, I feel like we're like kind of, it reminds me a little bit of, I'm going back to 2019, when like the Bills were 9-3 and they won the division. We knew they weren't going to win the division because the Patriots were still good, and they clinched the playoff spot. And like, it just kind of felt like, okay, like, get to the end so we can get to the playoffs. And that's kind of how it feels a little bit to me. And it's also a little bit of like, they should win the next 3 games. And I think because of that, your game faces might not be on, even as like a fan, or just even for them as well. You know what I mean? Because the stakes just don't feel like they're there right now a little bit. You know what I mean? Because again, I don't have that much hope of them getting that 1st seed. I definitely feel that, look, they're 2 games up on the 2nd seed. They're not going to lose, the next one of the next 2 games, or even if they're not going to go 0-2. Right. So it just kind of feels like that could be a little bit of the lethargic thing. And I got one more thing for you with home games. The Bills win next week. They're undefeated at home, And the last time that happened was 1990. Was the last time they went.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they went undefeated
Super
at
Bowl.
home. Was a Super Bowl? Yeah. So yeah, it's kind of an interesting thing to see what they do. Is this, what happens? And look, I would like the number 1 seed, and it's going to be interesting to see how many guys they're going to rest going forward, because I'm trying to think of games in which they've had their guys usually look, you clinch, you rest for week 18 or the last game of the season. You don't usually do 2 games in a row, you rest guys. And I can't really think of too many teams that have done that before.
No. Well, games, we'll get to how you think they should handle it if they get in that situation. We'll get to that a little bit later. I'll say this about the Bills too. And look, they're not the exception. They're the norm. There's not a team in this league that just doesn't come out flat, overconfident, not ready to play a handful of times a year. We've seen a Baltimore Ravens team that looks unbeatable at times, where I'm shitting myself at the thought of playing them in the playoffs right now. And then they also come out and they lose at home to Vegas. They lose at home to Cleveland. We've seen the Chiefs escape victory by the skin of their teeth multiple times against really bad teams this year, literally coming down to kicks. So it's not like this was completely, maybe we should have expected a little bit of a letdown. I mean, they had that stretch, big market games, big opponents. They beat Detroit on the road. You come home against New England. Sean McDermott could preach all he wants about, having a championship mindset during the week. But I just think it's human nature to kind of, every now and then take a little bit of a step back and get a little bit overconfident. We'll never know. But do you think that Sean McDermott today, considering that all the guys on the injured list, none of them were DNPs all week. They practiced on a limited basis. No DNPs at any point of the week. Nobody was ruled out on Friday. They were all questionable. Do you think that maybe Sean McDermott, between Rasul Douglas and Milano and DeMar Hamlin and Taylor Rapp, 4 starters on defense, do you think that maybe he just aired an overabundance on the side of caution? These guys could have played, but hey, we're playing the Patriots at home. We shouldn't need them, and we're not even going to take a chance. So we're not going to play our best players this game because we're not going to need them. Do you feel like, I mean, again, we'll never know what their extent of their injuries are, but you kind of feel like it was a little overabundance of caution with him?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, they remember last year against the Chiefs with AJ Klein, your boy, starting over Bernard. And I think they think about that. And I think even the years past, with injuries, you can make a case 13 seconds, maybe Trey Waite's playing in that game. If he maybe that doesn't happen if he doesn't blow his ACL out. I'm sure those are factors for that team, and I think they really want to, rest guys. I mean, I don't know if Sean's been asked, hey, do you ever look at who you're playing in terms of forcing them to come back quicker? It should be a question,
right.
I'm paraphrasing, to ask him. I mean, he probably won't give you much, but it's probably something that you have to ask the players. You have to ask Milano, hey, do you think he could have won today? And he's like, oh, no, definitely not. But yeah, I mean, it's, as I told you a little bit a while ago, in terms of the stakes not being that high right now, it's probably the same thing with the injury, with playing the injuries. And it's tough for a game like this for me to have this hot take, or what do you take away from this game because of the injuries on defense? Your starters, were out, and you got a banged up secondary. So it's just, and look,
I agree.
Yeah, it was an ugly game. It happens. Every team has them, even the good ones. And we are a good one. The Bills are a good one. The Chiefs have them. It happens all the time. So that's kind of how I look at it today. I mean, there's probably 1 or 2 things long term I'm probably a little worried about, but those are things that I've been worried about before this game.
Sure. So. I agree with you 100% there. And there are some takeaways I got from the game. Some mean to me more than others. Some might go on beyond this game. But sure, look, I just think the Bills were all confident in this game. They did not come out ready to play, and it absolutely showed. We talked about things that were annoying. One of the things that really annoyed me is they didn't even try to run the football. In the first half, they only had 4 carries from the running backs. Now, of course, it helps when your defense could get off the goddamn field, and the first 2 drives were just the epitome of what frustration is. And this is where I try to be careful, because I'm like, listen, you got 4 starters out. And Dorian Williams, you could get kind of having that mix too. He did not start this football game, kind of taking a little bit easy with his elbow injury. So was that a factor? Sure. And we'll talk about some of that ugly first half from the defense. But I will say this, Joe, the reason why the tone of this conversation is not a lot different right now, straight up, isn't because of the offense. It's not because of the guy who's almost certainly going to be MVP when it gets announced before the Super Bowl. They won this game despite the awful first half and start from the defense. This defense flat out bailed the Buffalo Bills out. After the first two drives, New England's offensive possessions resulted in punt, end of the half, fumble, interception, a defensive touchdown, literally a defensive touchdown, another punt, and then the last drive of the game where they gave up the touchdown and about 20,000 penalties on that fucking drive. That was frustrating as well. But the defense, I mean, we should give some credit to them because, like I said, after just an awful, embarrassing start, they really turned it up in the second half. And you make up for a lot of shit when you produce 3 turnovers, including a defensive touchdown, which is the equivalent of a pick 6. And Cam Lewis did have an interception, a nice interception too, in the end zone. One of the very few terrible plays that Drake May had all day, but they had to pay for it. You know, he kept them off the board. So let's give some credit, I guess, to the defense despite their deficiencies, because the Bills lose this game if this defense doesn't produce all 3 of those turnovers.
Yeah, the defense came up big after the first quarter. That first quarter was pretty bleak, and it was. And they forced some turnovers. They got some good pressure from the defensive line, and sorry, the noise in the background. They got some defensive pressure, etc. But I will say this though: the one thing to piggyback on the defense that's kind of a concern is like these slow starts, and that's just kind of being a little bit annoying. I don't know whether you had that on your list about your rundown, but like.
It's been a while since they had this bad of a start. Like this was kind of typical earlier in the year.
Yeah, but even the Rams game, just 2 weeks ago, the defense had a slow start against the Rams, and I don't know what's the case with that. It's something that's been a little bit annoying. There's some theories that people have that hey, we can, do things like that in terms of like they're feeling it out or whatever. But that's something that's a little bit of a concern for me. But yeah, the defense got turnovers, and again, they gave New England 21 points. I mean, that last drive, as you said, was penalty filled. It was super annoying, and
that was ugly, dude.
Yeah, it was ugly.
Ugly drive. It was frustrating because the Bills should have put that game away. For context, they had to play good in the second half defensively and get those turnovers to kind of atone for how awful the defense was in the first half. You said the first quarter, the first half of the game, they were just brutal. The Patriots had 238 yards in 20 minutes, more than 20 minutes of time of possession in the first half. They ran 38 plays. They were 5 of 8 on third downs. Plus, they had the successful fake punt. Drake May threw for $158 in the first half. Definitely outplayed Josh Allen, at least in the first half. Bills offense couldn't get anything going. Josh was just 9 of 17 at the half. Khalil Shakir, one of my favorite receivers in the league now. The dude never drops anything. Has a ball sail through his hands. I was like, whoa, shit. This might be that type of day. Like, literally, the entire Bills' first half positives were pretty much James Cook, that 46-yard touchdown run, which, by the way, should have been a delay of game. For all the people out there bitching about all the penalties the Bills got, I'm telling you right now, that should have been a penalty against Buffalo. And I noticed this during the game. Deion Dawkins, a couple of these other guys, they got away with a lot of false starts. Like the Bills could have had even more penalties. So I know there's a couple people in the chat and some people on social media saying that the refs sucked. Look, maybe they did, but the Bills were the benefit. They were the beneficiaries, I should say, of at least a handful of calls that went their way. But anyway, you get my point here. It's just Joe, what I'm saying is they sleptwalked through the first half of the football game, and they were lucky. Do you think they were lucky to only be down 14-7? Like when you went, you got up at halftime, were you saying to yourself, man, feels like the Bills should be down more than just 7?
No, not really. I didn't really feel that way because you know what? It's New England, and it's just kind of like, what am I supposed to be? Like I knew they were going to win. I knew it was going to be one of those slow plays, and that's what happened. Like the third quarter, they dominated, and they kind of took it over. And that's kind of how I felt. I wasn't concerned at all in terms of like, oh, they should be up by more. It's just, again, my biggest question is, why are they having these slow starts? It's happened this year a lot. And you could say it's injuries. You can say, like you talked about, the stakes not being as high as they've been in the past. And it is a letdown. You go from like the last 2 weeks, like we talked about this 4-game stand that they just concluded. Like that was a big part of the schedule where they're going to play really good teams with, the Rams and San Fran, and I forgot who the one was before that. But there was another team that they were supposed to play that they had a 4-game stretch and they went 3-1. And then and then now you get back to this, and it's just kind of like, okay, you have this sort of this a letdown a little bit, because you're playing a 3-11 team, I don't think go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, I think like New England was almost like kind of confused. I think as shell-shocked as the Bills were, how flat they were and how they were getting their asses handed to them for big chunks of the game, I also would go as far as to say is that I think New England was a little bit shell-shocked that things were going their way as much as they did. Jared Mayo, in some ways, I give him a lot of credit because he had New England ready to play on the road, tough environment, freezing ass cold, kind of a nothing to lose mentality. But then I'm like, okay, you're up 14-7. It's 4th and 1. You're freaking 3-11 this season, and you punt on 4th and 1. I was like, well, thank you for that gift. So it's like, I don't know.
Yeah, that was pretty weak.
It was very weak. It was very weak. And I mean, they did the crazy fake punt and got away with that. Good for them. Just saying, it was kind of a New England almost felt like weird. It was like one of those, here, we're going to give you a win here. No, we don't want it. We're going to throw right back to you. We're going to make a mistake every time that you make a mistake. Look, what a fun football game. I mean, it's good to get the win. The Bills are 12-3, all the same if they win 35-0 or 24-21. We wake up, victory Monday, people are waking up to, but let's just be honest, this was not a very fun football game to watch. Josh Allen, the MVP, still the MVP to me. It just wasn't great today. It was not great. This was not a fun game to watch, dude. It just wasn't.
No, you know what it reminded me of? And it just came in my head. It reminded me a little bit of the drought, where the roles were reversed, like during the drought, where every other year the Bills would play like an okay game against New England, and New England would be sluggish. And like, oh wow, we're in this game somehow. And like it's Doug Marrone or whoever, and then like you bring up the punting thing, and like Doug Marrone decides to punt, and it's like, why are you doing this? Like you're this record or whatever, like go for it, and then you get burned or whatever down the stretch. That's what the game felt like. It felt like vintage 2009 Patriots or something like that versus the Bills, where it was a close game. You had you had control, and again, it's the roles are reversed a little bit here, and then you kind of get pissed off, and you're like, all right, let's just get these guys out of here. Yeah. And that's what they did. And, I thought, who'd you think, who was the most impressive player today for you, would you say, on the offense side of the ball, defense? Like if he had, like, who do you got? Go ahead.
It's easy. James Cook.
Yeah.
James Cook was unstoppable today. The only thing that stopped James Cook was the Bills just not getting him more touches. He had 14 touches and he had 126 yards. And 2 touchdowns. He was averaging 9 yards every time he touched the football. I do like the fact that this team does different things. One good thing, all the Bills running backs contributed again, not in a huge way, but like Ty Johnson had that nice first down run, which kind of helped ice the game at the very end. Ray Davis had a nice catch out of the backfield to convert. I believe that might have been a 3rd down as well. So, I mean, the running backs did good things again. And there's another guy I want to talk to about in a minute here on the other side of the ball that I thought was really good. I want to bring up a comment too. Jeremy Spencer live in the chat here says, this is all I have to say about us barely holding on. The Chiefs barely held on in almost every game, and they're the number 1 seed in the AFC. I mean, it's a good point. It's a fair point. Sure. You're going to have these games. It's just, it doesn't make it any fun to watch though in real time. You were talking about lasting takeaways. I kind of want to get into some takeaways here because one thing, I'm going a little bit random. I'm just going to hop from good to bad. We're going to watch the film. I'm going to watch the film for sure on Monday. And something I think I'm going to see? They hit on it a couple times during the game. This is a little concerning to me. Credit to New England too for great game plan, but it didn't look like the Bills receivers were getting open at all this game. Like I said, Josh Allen wasn't great. Well, I don't think his receivers were doing a very good job of creating separation and getting open. Like every time, and we'll have to watch the film, but every time it seems you'd see a replay, it just didn't look like they were like this guy's wide open and Josh is just missing him. It just didn't seem like guys were getting open. This is a New England defense that is not very good. Jabril Peppers is their best safety by far. He didn't even play in this game. I mean, they got a great corner, but this was not supposed to be a back seven secondary and a back seven that was going to kind of shut the passing game down, but they sort of did. And they also had a spy on Josh Allen. Josh Allen didn't really have any of those signature long scrambles with his legs. So that's going to be a little concerning. I mean, did you kind of notice, did it feel like Bills receivers, just like a lot of the catches that were made, they were like tight. The coverage was right there.
I definitely felt that there was little to no separation today. Yeah. And I'm not watching the film tomorrow, but you can, and you can let me know, were the Patriots holding a lot, like in terms of and that was the reason why they couldn't get separation. Sure. Again, Josh Allen had 370 yards or whatever the last 2 weeks in a row. Like he passed a bunch, and like he doesn't this week at all against a really like a lackluster defense. Again, it could have just been an off week, and that's probably it. I am also curious to see, James Cook, like you said, what, 12 touches for like 120 yards or something like that.
Yeah. 14 touches, $126 and 2 touchdowns.
Yeah.
Both offensive touchdowns. For
I'm curious if they were like daring the Bills to run. And like it was like, hey, come run on us. Like we're gonna flood the passing lanes, have a lot of defensive backs back there. You said they put a spy on Allen, and they were like, James Cook's gonna be the best player today. And he was. And that's that's fine. Maybe they should have been a little bit more committed to the ball, to running the football if that was the case. But again, it's tough to take anything else like out of this game. They just scored 8 games in a row with 30 points or more. I can't come on here and just be like, oh, what the hell? You couldn't get the 30.
Yeah, Richard Rush commented in the chat too. Says, not gonna lie, I wanted to score.
Yeah, me too. I wanted that too.
They would have, if I would have told you 9 weeks ago, the Bills are going to go 8 straight weeks and have 30 points, and that streak's going to end at home against the 3-11 New England Patriots, you would have been like, what?
Yeah.
But it did.
That did it.
All right.
Yeah, so that's it. But like it's a tough game to like as I said, take anything away from it. I got takeaways. What but long term though. Like
you got a couple.
Yeah, well, you're a hot take machine over here.
A little bit.
I mean, I'll say this, and I don't, the third down defense needs to get better. That's been just an abomination the last month. They just been giving up too many of those.
Like, 5 for 5 to start the game. The Patriots were on third downs. It was just an absolutely mind-blowingly frustrating start to the game.
And those weren't sorry to interrupt, but those weren't 3rd and 3. These were 3rd and long, and they're giving up the first. I was like, come on, dudes! It's New England, and you did that last week, and they've had issues. The Rams game was a bomb, was terrible. So I don't know how you fix that, or what the deal is. They get complacent, or the calls just they're not aggressive enough, or whatever.
The Bills, I thought Bobby Babbage was far more aggressive blitzing this game, and they were getting pressure. They just weren't getting home. They weren't. Yeah. The Bills had 2 sacks on this day. And one of them was a weak one. It's one of those the running back or the quarterback runs out of bounds for a yard loss on the sideline, and it's credited with a sack. Austin Johnson got sacked or credit for a sack. They blitzed a lot. And credit to the Patriots. Credit to Drake May for knowing where to get rid of the ball. He made some really good throws under duress. He scrambled and bought himself time. And the running backs a couple times, especially Antonio Gibson, man, he did a great job. It seemed like every time Dorian Williams blitzed, he was just about to hit the quarterback, and then Gibson would come out of nowhere with a really good block. Here's what I'll do real quick. On the video side, folks, literally, I'm talking 5 seconds. Going to take a 5-second break on the video side, come back, and I do got some. You said some takeaways. You want some takes. You want some takeaways. I definitely got a handful of them, good and bad, to go over with you after this little 5-second break. All right, I am back here. Joe from Rochester, not Joe from Queens, for this episode anyway. We are instant reaction time here. Buffalo Bills 24-21 victory over the New England Patriots. I still can't believe the score was that close, but the Bills are 12-3 on the season. All right, I said I had some takeaways. Going to kind of alternate here. Bad, good, because there was a lot of both. God, I hope this is the last time I have to say this name this season in terms of him being on the field. Dalen Spector was awful, okay? Oh, my Lord. He got to start. Again, Dorian Williams, I think Sean McDermott said after the game, the plan was for Spector and Dorian Williams to kind of both get time. He didn't want to overload either of them because they're both coming off injuries. But, Lord, man, when Dalen Spector was on the field, what an eyesore. What an eyesore. The Patriots attacked him relentlessly, and it worked every time. This guy, and I know he's just a backup, okay? I get it. But you got to have some kind of better alternative than him at this point. He can't get off blocks. He can't shoot gaps. He doesn't finish on tackles, and he's lousy in coverage. He looked as bad as I can remember ever seeing a Buffalo Bills defender looking on a football field. That's how bad he was, I thought, in this game. He left with a calf injury for like the 10,000th time this season, and he'll probably end up on IR, and quite frankly, he should. But this guy, backup or not, you know, we saw it last year against Kansas City. You can't say backups don't matter because it sometimes comes down to that. This guy was just an absolute awful eyesore. You're laughing at me.
Because you hate this dude. I mean, look, he was bad.
I don't hate him as a person. He's just
we know that.
Terrible liability out there.
I'm just saying, like, you know, you have Mount Flushmore. Like, he's on it every week.
I put him on in all of them last week.
Yeah, all of them. You could do it for the rest of the time. Yeah, he's not very good, unfortunately. And I don't know what they can do. Like, I know what you're about to say, pandering Pat. You're going to pander to Buffalo Joe. You want him on the field instead of him. You love the hometown guys.
If that's the alternative. If that's the alternative, it's not that, man. It's not that, dude. I want to win football games. I don't care if it's Buffalo Joe, New Jersey Joe, Phoenix Joe.
Joe from Queens.
You have to be. I tell you, Joe Andreessen got to start this year, and I saw a little bit of promising things, some stuff. Yeah, he did. I think the Houston game he might have gotten a start. Yeah, I'm pretty sure he did. Pretty sure he did.
Someone in the chat list.
Oh, not Houston. Maybe it was the Baltimore game. Bernard came. I think Bernard came back. He did come back for the Houston game. Anyway, dude, just even Olafosio, the 5th round rookie, who hasn't played it, I don't think a defensive snap this year.
I'm ready to see.
I'm ready to see anything else except him. So that's bad. Here's good. I thought Dorian Williams was really, really, really good today. And I'll tell you what, I don't want to be a hot take machine, but I will throw one to you right now. I have changed my mind. I changed my mind from last week. I am ready for Dorian Williams to be the starter for this team for the rest of the season, whether Matt Milano is healthy enough to play or not. I think Dorian Williams, what I saw today, and for big chunks of this season, is better than what you're going to see from Matt Milano from the rest of 2024. I said in our preview a couple days before this game that I didn't care about most of the injured players, whether they played or not, but it was critical. Matt Milano needs reps. He needs them bad. He has been very mid, and that's almost being generous. He's been kind of mid in the 3 games since he's returned, which is fine. Build it up, ramp it up, get to the playoffs. However, he missed another game. He missed time again. And Dorian Williams played really good. He's physical. He's athletic. I like this kid a lot. I thought he was a big asset to the Bills in the second half of this game. And I'm at the point where I think he should be starting right now. You don't agree, though, do you?
Yeah, I need to see more on Milano. I'll agree. Like, Milano's been very mid. But he's just getting into the lineup. The matchups haven't been good. Like, if Matt Milano plays today, he's playing New England. That's not a good team that he's going against. He just he just played a bunch of like a murder's row of offenses. So, like, I think if he would have played today, there's a good chance he would have had a good game because it's New England. So I'm not there yet. I will say this though, he does need to get reps. He needs to get better. Just, I don't know what his contract is like next year, but if he's mid the rest of the year and into the playoffs, you got to start thinking about like his future after this.
I want to think about his present. I want to think about.
Well, I'm just saying. Well, I think it's too. I'm just saying. I think you have to give him time. Okay.
How much? There's not a lot of time left. There's not a lot of time left.
Well, there
here.
is time. There's 2 more weeks left.
Okay, but he didn't play this week, and I felt like he needed to. Okay, how much do you think he's going to improve? Let's just give him the benefit of the doubt. Let's say he's back. Let's say Sean said, you know what? I'm going to hold you out this week, and then we're really going to try to ramp you up some more over these last 2 games. Based on what you've seen these first 3 starts that he's had, do you feel confident enough in him that is that Matt Milano, and let's just say that's what you're going to get for this year, that Matt Milano, who we both agree is mid, is that going to be better than what Dorian Williams is giving you right now in a playoff game where if you lose, that's a wrap. That's the season.
I'm picking Matt Milano over Dorian Williams, even mid, because Williams is not. Look, he's been good. He was good today, but there's been moments this year he hasn't been.
Agreed.
Okay? Like there's let's not like put the annoying oil away, Pat.
Yeah,
like,
he's not.
I know you love. I know you love
Lawrence Taylor. I get it.
Okay, but I'm just saying. I know you like the young players when they come in.
I love
You've
Matt
always.
Milano.
But no, you love everyone, but you really like the young. You fall in love with the younger players right away.
If I had a webcam right now and I had a second camera, if you looked behind, if it was in the shot, I can't get my camera from this angle, but I literally got a cardboard of Matt Milano's face there in the back of my office. I am a huge Matt Milano fan.
We all know you're a huge man. You're a huge fan of everyone except Bale Inspector. We get that, but I'm just saying you fall in love with younger players very easily. I have followed you for a long time, sadly.
Sure.
Okay, you fell in love with Justin Rogers. You fell in love with Aaron Williams. When he was a corner.
Dorian Williams has done more. Aaron Williams blocked me. I was never in love with Aaron Williams. Aaron Williams.
You liked him. You liked Whitner until he started trolling you. You liked him. You always
never liked him for a day. Never liked him for a day.
Yeah, because he told you.
I was mad that he was the 8th overall pick. I get what you're saying, though. I have a tendency to fall in love with potential as opposed to performance. But I think Dorian Williams' performance right now is better than what I've seen from Matt Milano.
I have to go with the guy who was an All-Pro 2 years ago. That's just me. I'd rather go through that. I don't think
someone agrees with you in the chat, by the way. My man, Rage Your Corpse. Exactly. Acknowledge him. He's a big Roman Reigns guy. Every time we see each other, we got to acknowledge each other. Anyway, he said, I'm aggravated with Milano too, Pat, but Jesus, he's an All-Pro.
Yeah,
he's an All-Pro. But have you seen even flashes of his All-Pro self in those first 3 games? Look, if this was week 6, 7, 8, I'd be like, whatever, all kinds of time. Only 2 games left now, man. And only 2 games left.
And he can play next. He can play next week, and then get those in. He's an All-Pro. You have to give it. You have to give him. Look, if they want to change a pace, and if he struggles, then you put in Williams a little bit. Fine, but it's still.
My take is subject to change. Right now, though, Dorian Williams is a better linebacker than Matt Milano right now today. I don't think there's any doubt about that.
No, I'll doubt that because you're going off one great game, dude.
He's had more than one great game. He's played well plenty of times this season.
I don't know, man. I you sound like a film bro, and I don't like that. I just no, he's been today. He was good. I saw him make plays today, but I'm not there yet. I'm sorry, I'm not there yet. No.
All right, that's fair. Well, here's where I'm at too now. You said. I like all the young players. I want to. Here goes another guy that I really want to like, but I got to tell you this: because of injury, opportunity was there, and we were like, God, if this guy's ever going to get an opportunity, what is he going to do with it? Well, Kyrie Elam today, at least anyway. What we saw from Kyrie Elam today, and I mean this, what we saw from him today is exactly why Sean McDermott never has and never will have any real faith in him as a football player. And look, he got beat for that first touchdown. I ain't even mad at that. I thought the coverage was good.
Yeah, it would have been nice if it was a great throw.
It was a perfect throw from Drake May. That was a Josh Allen caliber throw for that touchdown. Kyrie could have played it much better. I mean, he could have, maybe got a hand up on the football, but his coverage was right there. I mean, that throw had to be a 10 out of 10 to work. So I'm not even mad about that. But he got beat other times. And then that last drive, this is the Kyrie Elam that you see every year at training camp when I say, oh, why is this guy not a starter? Why is he not better? Because he would get flagged at practice, every single training camp practice with his hands. And he had 2 penalties. One of them you could argue it shouldn't have been a penalty. I don't agree. I thought it was a penalty. And then the other one was just blatantly obvious. But, Patriots are trying to say, no, we don't want this touchdown. We don't want to get within 3. We'd rather just kick a field goal. But Kyrie Elam was like, nope, I'm going to make sure that you get 7 here to make it even more interesting at the end, which, by the way, that onside kick, made me really nervous. Quentin Morris almost lost it. Thank God Khalil Shakir, which was probably the best thing Khalil Shakir did the entire game, was be there to fall in that football. But anyway, back to Kyrie Elam here. Get well soon, Rasul Douglas. All these injuries that they got going on right now, I think I can make an argument after watching today that Rasul Douglas is the most important player that's still currently injured.
Yeah, I would agree with that with Douglas. I mean, look, Elam. Here's the thing: a couple of things. One, I think if it was like a decade ago, Elam would be a really good player because he's a very physical player, and like you could see like he's there on coverages sometimes, but in today's NFL, they flag you all the time. You can't have holding down the field. You can't PIs. They call that all the time.
Right.
That's the problem with Elam, and he also has zero ball awareness. He just doesn't know where the ball is. And I remember like Leotis McKelvin used to always have that issue where you would throw to him, like he just didn't know where the ball was, and he would run into the wide receiver, and once you run into the wide receiver with your back turned, it's over. You get a PI all the time, 9 out of 10 times. And Elam just isn't that guy. Like he definitely feels like to me like he's gonna give you. He probably would give you big plays on both sides of the ball. You know what I mean? Like in terms of obviously we saw it today, but like I think he's a guy that would get picks because he would get picked on all the time, and he's physical. And if a ref lets him get away with stuff, he can get interceptions. But if the ref doesn't, he's screwed.
He's physically gifted, man.
He's that's what I mean. Like
dude, he's a gifted dude.
He just
frustrating.
Yeah, and you know another example of, and I've said this before, I'll say it again. Don't read into training camp hot takes because he was like the MVP of training camp this summer. All of you guys, especially you, the content bros, were like, "Oh, Elam was good this year with this camp," but he didn't. Camp is bullshit. I've said that before. I'll say it again. I'm never gonna let that die. I don't care. There could be an apocalypse, and you and I are in a bunker together, and I'm gonna remind you of how training camp is terrible because it is. But yeah, he had a rough game today, and I don't know why he was drafted this high. I don't know. I don't even remember what the scouts said about him, but like he's been a bust basically since day one.
He's a bust. He's a bust. He doesn't have a future on this football team. Now, if Sean McDermott's the head coach next year, Kyrie Elam's not going to be. They're going to get another corner. Whether Rasul Douglas is re-signed or whether he leaves,
I don't think he's getting the fifth-year option. We'll just say.
He's not getting a fifth-year option.
I know. That's a joke, bro. I just said I don't think he's getting it as a joke. Okay, relax. Jeez. Okay.
No, they can move on from him. Whether they cut him, whether they try to trade him for a 7th-round pick, he gets a fresh start somewhere else. I am pretty convinced now if Sean McDermott, assuming he's the head coach, that this is going to be the end of the road for Kyrie Elam. It's crazy, too, because that 2022 draft class, man, the Kyrie Elam's a bust, and I do feel comfortable saying that now after today.
He is.
But you're like, well, how you have an amazing draft class? You whiffed literally on your 1st-round pick. Well, you got James Cook in that class. You got Khalil Shakir in that class. I know there's a couple other people I'm forgetting about. Maybe Spencer Brown was in that class as well. I can't remember. Anyway,
Dorian Williams was in that class too?
No, that was 2023. You know what? Okay. I'm somebody who can't let something go.
Go ahead,
I said it a million times. Now, I got to look it up. Because even with Kyrie Elam, like I said, he was absolutely a bust. But that 2022 draft class is starting to really look very special. Yeah, all right, so Kyrie Elam. Then it was James Cook. My bad. Terrell Bernard and Khalil Shakir and Christian Benford. So you got Cook, Bernard, Shakir, and Benford in that draft class. So even with Kyrie Elam being a bust, that still was an incredible class. But anyway, my whole point was this. This is why Sean McDermott just can't trust this dude. Man, if Rasul Douglas is out another week, I wouldn't be stunned to see them go to Jamarcus Ingram to play corner and see what he could do over these last couple weeks. Back to the good side. Low key, but I like what I saw from Tyler Bass. Kicking that 50-yard field goal, dead smack in the middle of the uprights, plenty of distance. No problem on the extra points. I don't want to give the guy too much credit because when I do, he'll miss a 24-yard field goal like he did in Detroit. But, it's the AFC, man. It's the playoffs. A game could come down to a kick, and it's just good vibes. It's good to see Tyler Bass nail a 50-yarder. It was important, too. I mean, he put him up by 2 scores, which ultimately was the margin in the game, 3 points.
Yeah, I don't have anything to add to Tyler Bass. I'm just like, what do you want me to say? Like, yeah, he's maybe he's better when it's 50 plus yards this year. Like that's kind of how he's been. So maybe that's what they should go for. 50-yard field goals going forward.
Sloppy ass penalties. This game really plagued the Buffalo Bills. 13 penalties for 78 yards. Some costly ones too. Like I said, Elam's 2 penalties on that last drive helped New England get 7 instead of 3. I remember one specific penalty machine. I like Spencer Brown, but dude's a penalty machine, man. A false start. He had 2 more penalties this game. He's got like 12 or 13 by himself this season, but he took a 3rd and 3 and made it into a 3rd and 8. You know, those are the kind of penalties that really hurt the Buffalo Bills. And they got away with some too. It could have been more than that, but you agree, man, 13 penalties is just too damn much. This is part of what made this game, which really uglied up this game. And, you know, like we talked about, the way they just played in the first half was like they're their own worst enemy sometimes. Like that seems to be the biggest Bills problem. If they're going to lose any of these last 3 games, it's because they beat themselves, and they damn near did that today.
Yeah, they're definitely. It was a sloppy game by them, and yeah, at times they've been their worst enemy, as you said. You know, the officiating, like there were some calls that were a little bit dubious, but yes, they probably could have had more. It really depends on what the week is. Like the officiating in this league, I'm sorry, like it's very, very confusing, and like every week it's different. It's very subjective. You don't know what you get. I mean, I think the Chiefs have been living off the officials being freaking in their favor. I mean, obviously, I don't think they're like trying to purposely do it. I just think it's the luck of the draw. You have bad officials for one team, and sometimes it happens. So, but yeah, they got to get that stuff cut out. And I don't know what their ranking is in terms of penalties. You know, obviously the stats will get updated tomorrow, but yeah, you can't do that sort of stuff, especially at home. Like on the road, that happens. You get penalized more. At home, you shouldn't be doing that.
Kind of goes back to the beginning of the show. I said Jay Skursky just noticed that Sean McDermott was as annoyed as he's ever been following a win. I'm sure the penalties had a lot to do that. One other thing too, if you care, and I'm not talking about specifically you, people out there listening, if you even care about this shit, but the MVP race may have gotten a little bit tighter going into the last 2 weeks. Josh Allen statistically very subpar, and honestly, kind of subpar game by his standards anyway. The numbers weren't good. Meanwhile, Saquon Barkley had a monster day, and he's got a real chance to beat Eric Dickerson's record, which, by the way, the last game Philly plays is against the New York Giants. He might break the all-time rushing record against his old team, the Giants. That would be a funny story or fun storyline. The Ravens had a big win over Pittsburgh. Lamar threw 3 touchdowns and an interception. Not to defend Josh, but I will say this. Dude, Derrick Henry ran for 162 yards and a touchdown. Like, Lamar Jackson might not even be the best player on his own offense. You know what I'm saying? So that matters. The Bills won. If they would have lost this game, I think his MVP campaign definitely would have taken a hit. Do you think his MVP campaign took a hit today? And do you give a shit? And last, are you prepared for what's going to be an incredibly annoying week on social media with people talking about Lamar and Barkley and Josh MVP? Because I was almost at my peak with the Lamar Jackson, activists on Twitter X and a little bit on Blue Sky.
Well, I think I think there's more haters of Lamar Jackson on Bill. I haven't been on Bill's Twitter as much as I used to be. I have always thought Bill's Twitter hated him. They've hated him since the first year, his first rookie year. I will always remember watching the playoff game and people just burying him. I'm like, dude, he's a rookie. He carried the team to the playoffs, and everyone was just taking a colossal dump on him. And I feel like that's been that I've seen more haters of him than I do of Josh Allen on Bill's Twitter, or even in the national perspective. With that being said, I think it's I think Lamar's had a great year. His numbers have been awesome.
Yeah.
And like they've been better than they were his MVP years, to be honest with you. He's been great. I do feel, if I'm putting myself maybe in like a media's shoes, maybe you can't three times would be a little bit too much. And I think they want a new face. And I think when you turn on ESPN, they've been pretty pro Josh Allen. Like they've all liked Josh Allen, the first take people have, even like Rex Ryan said, like he's the best player in the league. It's no doubt about it. Like I think eventually you want a fresh face, and I think that's what this is Josh Allen is a fresh face. And I think that's why he's going to win. He's going to have a couple more wins on him. And I think that's it. But look, you can't take away Lamar's year. He's been great. And again, I'm not on social media as much as you are. I've cut that back. But up until like my cutting it back a little bit, I've always thought Buffalo Twitter hated Lamar, and they've always been all over him. And I think they resented him winning the MVP last year. I even think they did it a couple of years ago, and it's been kind of weird to me because I don't see that much hate.
Josh was much better statistically last year, which
is
ironic because Lamar's much better statistically this year.
But again, the difference is last year the Bills were 6-6. The Ravens have not had that 6-6 start. That I think it was last year. If the Bills didn't have that slow start and they were more I don't know, like they weren't 500 at one point in December, I think it could have been different. But once that happened, it was kind of like, they go by record, and that's how I feel. And I think push comes to shove, the Bills have a better record. Josh is great. I do think if I'm a voter, I'm looking at it as you just said, like Derrick Henry's awesome. I think the Ravens' weapons are much better than what the Bills have. And I think that's why I would pick Josh Allen.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Lamar's a top 4 quarterback in this league. He's incredible, man. He really is.
I remember back. I'll just tell you, just to go back to like, the opener against the Chiefs. Lamar had like over 400 yards like in total offense. And I said something like, kind of like, where are the haters now? Because he had 400 yards, and like 4 or 5 Bills bros on Twitter like came into my mentions and were complaining like, oh, he wasn't that good in this game, and I was like, dude, he just had 400 yards in total offense against the Chiefs. And they lost because I forgot what it was. It was like a barely an incomplete pass, or but was like a toe for them to go into overtime, like a touchdown. And I was like, you people are weird. So that's how I feel. Again, that's how I know you follow different people, and maybe it's different. I don't know. That's how I felt then. But I agree. And then to do I care about the MVP race? I care. I'd like Josh Allen to win it. I think it would be cool. I'm not going to like have a campaign and be angry tweeting about it if he loses. I think there are going to be people who are going to lose their minds when that happens. And I'm sure they'll quote tweet some Raven stands, and then like it will be a back and forth like, oh, you losers, screw you, like all that sort of stuff. But like, look, Lamar is, I'm watching. You can watch 2 great quarterbacks and just be like, and marvel at how great they are. You don't have to like take a dump on the other one. And then be like, oh, bury him. Like, they're both great. Like, good for them.
Let's celebrate them both. That's kind of like the Allen Mahomes thing. Let's just celebrate them both. You can have a voice
until they
go
against each other. Then you have to hate them. Yeah.
Sure. You could have a voice for who you think deserves to be MVP without being derogatory towards the other person. They're 2 great quarterbacks. I agree with you there. Big advantage to Josh, like you said, too. It's Lamar having Derrick Henry, and losing at home to Vegas and Cleveland does have a negative impact on a campaign. Again, if the Bills would have lost today at home to New England, maybe that has a negative effect on him. If Barkley does break the record, I do think he will deserve serious consideration. And go on, what do you got?
The whole breaking the Dickerson record, that's so stupid. He had more.
Been there since 1984 though.
I know, Pat, but they're playing an extra game. That's why. Like they should have different rules. Like, look, I don't care what anyone says. Like OJ's the single season rushing champion. He did it in 14 games. Like Barry Sanders and whoever, and Dickerson did it in 16. Like it's
Jamal Lewis,
yeah. They should all have. I wish they would have like done something with the individual seasons where they would have changed it for like this is the record for 16 games. This is the record for 17 or 14. Like, it doesn't mean much to me if like he breaks the Dickerson. I mean, it's a great accomplishment, no doubt about it. But you're doing it in 17 games, and I do like Barkley.
He'll win Offensive Player of the Year. That's what usually the running back who has a special season.
Well, look, and I do like Barkley. I think we talked about MVP like a month and a half ago, and I said Barkley's a low key guy. Like, and then he got like 260 yards the next week. But again, it's the same thing. Like the first thing I look for at an MVP, the criteria is you look at the stats, you look at the teammates, and you look at the win-loss record. Not in that specific order, like do whatever order you want. But I just feel like the Eagles are loaded with weapons. Like the Eagles went to the Super Bowl 2 years ago, okay, without Barkley. So that's how I kind of look at it. And I think he's your MVP. And yeah, it was, I'm sure there were games this year that Lamar didn't look great. Barkley wasn't good last week. I know I have him in fantasy, in fantasy football. This week he was great,
you know who was freaking great this week at the worst time ever for me.
Oh,
Jonathan Taylor had to pick this week to have 200 rushing yards and 3 touchdowns and send me
wow.
packing in the semis of our league. Look, I do care from the aspect of you want your players from your team to be, if you want them to be considered an all-time great. At the end of the day, highlights matter, but what matters even more are MVPs and at least championship appearances. And if you want Josh Allen to go down as one of the best quarterbacks in NFL history, and he never gets to a championship game or he doesn't win an MVP or two, it's really hard to make that case. You could say he's the most physically gifted quarterback of all time, but is he one of the greatest ever? MVPs and championships ultimately are what going to, determine that. Now, if you are worried about Josh Allen winning MVP, I would say he might not play much these last 2 weeks, which kind of gets to so I want to end by talking about that. And then I do have a couple comments from people who've been leaving them throughout the show that I want.
Yeah, and if you have questions, feel free to address them, and we'll be happy to do that.
Sure.
So go ahead.
All right. So like I said earlier, if Kansas City wins over Pittsburgh, certainly feasible. And if Houston beats Baltimore in Houston, certainly feasible on Wednesday, Christmas Day, the Bills are locked into the 2 seed no matter what. They can't get to the 1 and they can't fall to the 3. They're locked in at 2. If you're Sean McDermott, how do you handle these last 2 weeks if the Bills are locked into the 2 seed? With the caveat that I want to say, a primary concern of mine is you want your best, you want your football team to be playing their best going into the playoffs. I always think that's really important. But between this kind of a stinker that they got away with today and maybe extra rest for the last 2 weeks, does that really have a chance to happen? So if you're Sean McDermott and you get up Thursday morning at practice and you still got 2 games left, how are you handling this if you got nothing record standing wise to play for?
I think you play your starters against the Jets for like a half. And then in the finale against the Patriots, it's like a quarter, maybe even less. Actually, less than that. You don't even play them.
Okay.
And I think you just and look,
I would agree with that for sure. The last week, I don't think you play starters. If you don't need to.
And look, I don't know about it's case by case basis. Let me just give you like some history, okay?
Sure.
During the Bills Super Bowl era, 3 out of the 4 years, the last game of the season did not matter. They rested their guys. Look how far they went. They went to the Super Bowl. Didn't matter. They rested their guys in those games.
Right.
On the other side, I do remember the Colts. The 1 year that's the last time I can remember a team having like 2 weeks where they didn't play their stars. And if you remember that was when they were like 13-0 or 14, like they were 14-0, and then they rested their starters in like one of the games, and they ended up losing the undefeated record because they rested their guys. And then what ended up happening was they had the first seed. They lost to Pittsburgh. That was when the Jerome Bennett's fumble thing, and if you remember that. But Vanderjagt mixed the field goal. And I remember after that game, everyone was like, well, they were rusty. They didn't have enough. They had too much rest, and that's what happened. And the next year, they won a Super Bowl when they had to like play all the way through the end of the season. Like they weren't in the number 1 seed, etc. There's different examples you can use for how you want your team to play well going into the playoffs. Now, look, last year, Pat, the Chiefs didn't play great on the stretch, but they got good in the playoffs and they won the Super Bowl. And I think that's kind of what matters the most, I would say. Because look, the Bills have lost the division around 3 years in a row. How good have they been in December? They've been pretty damn good. Great, but they've lost. So does it really matter like how good you are in December? There's examples. I am team rest, and that's just how I am. Agreed. And that's all. And like just rest your dudes. I think if you're a young team, maybe you want to play them more. But I don't think of them as a younger team. Maybe you do. But I think that and there's guys who have been here for a couple of years. Like there's some certain guys like Cook's but Cook was the main guy last year. Shakir was the main guy last year. There's guys who have been here a little bit longer. That's kind of how I feel, that you're just kind of like, just get rest. That's it. If you're a younger team, maybe you need those reps. But for me, I don't feel, but they've always been a team that's rested their guys. They rested their guys in the finale in what it was 2020. Remember, if you remember, against Miami, where Matt Barkley lit up Miami and they sent them packing home.
I think the finale, I think resting starters in the finale is a given. I think that's a lock already. I'm talking about,
the
do you
Jets
rest
game.
them for the Jets game? Are you
Yeah.
sitting your starters for the last 2 weeks of the season? I
Now,
think that's where there's a little bit of a debate or a little bit of a dilemma with Sean McDermott.
As I said, a half against the Jets if they already have clinched the 2 seed and and et cetera, and then nothing against the Patriots. It's Matt Barkley time, and that's it. Yeah.
Okay. So. What I think they should do is pretty much exactly what you said. I might even take it one step further. And again, we're going on if the 2 seed is locked up. So I want to be really clear about that.
Absolutely.
I got nothing to play for in the standings. Josh Allen just played his last snap of the season, the regular season for me. His hand, his elbow, by the way, he banged his elbow. He's fine now, but that's what the issue was. He couldn't feel anything for a good 10, 15 minutes, but he's had bumps and bruises. He will not see the field again. Terrell Bernard is too damn important. And middle linebacker, he wouldn't see the field again. Anyone, Deion Dawkins, he's not seeing the field. James Cook's probably not seeing the field. Shakir, all these guys are done playing for the season for me.
We got Elam playing Iron Man football, man.
Sure.
That's
Elam and Ingram get to start and call up whoever from the practice squad as your third corner, I guess. I am not risking it. They're a veteran team with guys who have been here before. There's no, except for Keon Coleman, there's no first year players on this offense or defense, unless I'm forgetting about someone. I'm not. So they've been on this rodeo before. If I'm the Bills, I am totally resting guys as much as I can. To me, I look back to the Kansas City game and I will die on the hill that the Bills lost that game because Terrell Bernard and Christian Benford both got hurt in the wild card game. So they, you have to play an extra game. Another, by the way, debate for another time and going at it with people about whether it's better to be the 1 or 2 seed. I don't even want to get into that shit.
Oh today. Yeah, your boy that you love was probably arguing about that. Let me ask you this: do you have anything else you wanted to go through?
No. Well, what I was gonna say before you ask me, that's what I think the Bills should do. What I think Sean McDermott is going to do is play the starters and try to beat the Jets and then rest everybody in week 18. There's reasons in his mind anyway. He probably is not happy with the way this team played right now. He probably wants them to go out and play well at home against the Jets, and then rest the starters for week 18. I wouldn't do that. I think that's what Sean McDermott ultimately is going to do. Hopefully we don't have to find out because the Chiefs lose on Christmas. That would be a nice little Christmas gift. What were you going to ask me?
What is your? I've asked you this. I think after every game, not every game, but most of them. Give me who your fear bunker for the AFC teams against the Bills. What do you got right now?
It hasn't changed. It's 2 teams. There's only 2 teams that. Well, I look with respect to the Kansas City Chiefs, who they will only play in the championship game. All bets are off. I'll play anyone anywhere if you can get me to the championship game. Sure. But first 2 rounds, fair bunker order. There's just 2. It's the Bengals, who probably aren't going to get in. They're only 10%. And the Ravens are back up there in that bunker because they look like they're playing really good football again. That defense is coming around, and Derrick Henry is just a beast, man. So those are the 2 teams.
That's I would say I'm not fearful of the Chiefs. I'm not fearful of them at all. I really think it's been a lot of smoke and mirrors this year. I still believe that. Sure. And I'm not. I feel
Mike White time.
Yeah, they got to bring Mike White up on the practice squad. Jabbar Hamlin or whatever. Not what's Hamlin? Who's a backup quarterback way back in the game? Number 10. Do you remember him from like 2009? Hamden or not Hamden? It was Jabir. He was the Indian guy. I forgot his name, but you know who I'm talking about.
Yeah. Hamden. But,
yeah, something like that. I would say that I don't feel the Chiefs. I really don't. I do think like the Chargers can still give a scrappy. Like I'm still on that Chargers bandwagon a little bit. Like I still think that they match up well against the Bills in terms of rushing the football, played okay defense, but I'm not scared. But I still think the Ravens are a bad matchup. And I hear you with like Lamar hasn't had that playoff moment yet.
It would be worse in Baltimore though. I will say that. No, I'm not running to the front of the line saying, give me the Ravens. That's who I want. That's a good point. Let me get to a couple of these comments for before we get out of here. Michael Pasquale said Tyler Bass had a good day with a big 50-yarder. Yeah, sure. Look, and it might matter down the road here. Alex Barber, Mike White, revenge game upcoming. It would be nice to start him against the Jets. If they really, truly don't give a shit about winning or losing these last 2 games, it would be nice to bring out Mike White and let him start against the New York Jets, who kind of treated him like shit. Mark says, it wasn't that hard in a playoff game a few years ago against the Patriots. It was even colder then. It's a fair point, right, Joe? I mean, the weather's been a lot worse than what today was just cold. Like, it wasn't it wasn't even wind. It was just like cold, and it just looked like a cold, they weren't their best today. They just didn't come out fired up, man. You could just see it.
The cold elements don't do anything for me. It's really how you are in the snow or rain or if it's windy. And yeah, New England game from 2 years ago, the playoff game where Allen was perfect. It was 7 degrees out and they obliterated New England. So it's look, it happens. Like Kansas City does it. Like a commenter said before, the Kansas City has won all these sluggish, ugly games this year. This was the Bills' sluggish, ugly game this year for them to win.
Yeah, that's you know what? I'm actually proud of myself because I'm already at that point. Usually it takes me a good night's sleep to wake up and say, yeah, you know what? Who gives a shit?
You're pretty even keel. I mean, the Milano thing is a little much, but that's
I truly believe that. I just think Dorian Williams is a better player right now. Look, when it ain't about appeasing people and what they've done in the past. Bill Belichick, put it this way, if Bill Belichick was the head coach of the Buffalo Bills and Matt Milano's had a better career, but Dorian Williams is probably the better player right now, Dorian Williams is the one who's going to be starting. Sean McDermott might be more loyal to his veterans, and kind of Dorian Williams doesn't feel like a guy that he trusts, kind of like Kyrie Elam, you know what I mean? So, like, Balin Spector was going to get the bulk of the lion's share of the snaps, it felt like today, until he got hurt, and he was a fucking unadulterated disaster out there. A couple more comments here. Tim D said, you got to sit 17 somehow before the playoffs. There's a couple comments in there.
He can go to Cancun with his fiance. He can
Michael
go there.
Bailey, if Kansas City and Baltimore lose, do you rest Josh Allen regardless? I think he meant if Pittsburgh and Baltimore lose. And the answer is yes, which we've talked about.
It is interesting, though. You make that good point about the MVP thing. Like him not really playing the last 2 weeks, and Baltimore has a lot to play for. Like they
100%.
They have to play for the division, and that's going to be the interesting thing to see what they do. Because
I don't think Josh Allen's season stats are quite updated yet, but let's just say that he played his last game. He'd have about under 3,600 yards passing and 26 touchdown passes for the season for Josh Allen if he played his last snap. Yeah, I don't know. Let's wait to see if he plays anymore before we talk about any stats here. Ralph Wilson Sr., frequent viewer of this show. I knew the Bills were in trouble when I saw them wearing their Pats retro jerseys. Bad juju. I'm gonna tell you this.
The candy
I'm glad
cane.
they survived. Kill those jerseys. I don't ever need to see those jerseys again. Red on red, I can live with. Red with the white, I hated.
I hate the red on red. You know what? You know what would have looked good? It would have looked good if they had the standing buffalo helmet, the hat you're wearing right now. If they had that on the helmet instead of the other one. Yeah, it's funny. They have never been good in those uniforms. I swear to you, it's always been kind of a mid jersey for them. But hopefully, I don't know when I'm assuming they're gonna switch their jerseys completely out for when they open the new stadium. That's what it just feels like, as far as I'm concerned. But whatever. Yes, I'm not thrilled with those uniforms at all.
Me neither. I just thought they were hideous. It just kind of contributed to that weird feeling I had all day. Ralph commented against it. If the Bills beat the Jets, they'll be undefeated at home for only the third time in their history.
I told you 90. Do you know what the other year was?
No.
Take a guess.
No idea.
Just take a guess.
93.
No, 88. They were undefeated. And that's the year they broke the attendance record. So at that time. So yeah, 88 and 90, they were undefeated at home.
Nice.
They would have been undefeated in 91, but they lost against Detroit in the finale in overtime when they rested all their starters and Detroit won. And that was when they had Barry Sanders.
I'm trying to find it was from Dano. And basically what he said, I can't find the comment here. Let me get to this one. Buffalo motivated said no Bills wide receiver had over 25 yards. I'd like to see someone step up and be elite. Look, it didn't matter today. Hasn't mattered for the most part all season long. But if you're going to make a deep playoff run, there is going to come a point, whether it's Shakir or Mari Cooper, those seem to be the two guys capable of having monster games. Keon Coleman, I mean, don't sleep on him, but sure. Look, somebody's going to have to step up. The Bills ain't getting to a Super Bowl if no wide receiver has 40 to 50 yards or more than that receiving in the game.
If you want me to complain, Amari Cooper hasn't really done anything since his opener. The first game. He's been and look,
Seattle too though. It's been a while though.
It's been a while. I don't think he did anything in Seattle. You can go look that up. I don't think he did dick in that game.
Yeah, that nice touchdown. He's been all right.
Seattle? I don't remember. Okay.
He hasn't been much. He did have a 64-yard last week though.
Did he have a no? Amari didn't. Cooper didn't have a
64. No, I thought you said Keon Coleman.
No, Cooper. I'm talking about. He hasn't really done anything since. I'm sorry,
he didn't even have a target last week, and he only had one catch this game.
And look, I know what the
dropped too today.
Yeah, I know what the defense is going to be. I can already hear in the film lab with cover one. They're going to say, "Well, he takes away all the other matchups, so all these other guys are open." And it's like, yeah, sure, there's a little bit of that, but it's been a while since he's done anything, and he needs to have a good game sooner rather than later because it's, whatever. He needs to step up, I would say, at some point.
Here's the point that I was looking at from someone named Dano, who's been commenting, and this is a great one here. Division game, guys, for Christ's sake, the Browns beat Pittsburgh and Baltimore.
Yeah.
And what he's saying are division games are hard to win. I agree with you there. Look, I don't think you and I have been this episode very hard on the Buffalo Bills whatsoever. I mean, they won the game only by 3 at home. They should have won by more.
Wow.
They were 14.5-point favorites, but I don't think you and I have been sitting here blasting them.
I don't know. Does anyone think we've been blasting them? If anyone is still alive in the chat, let us know. But I think we've been pretty chill about this. I've been chill. I mean, aside from Pat's Matt Milano hate and he wants to kill Balin. You want to drive Balin Spector into the Peace Bridge and leave him there.
I don't want to see Balin Spector on the field again. If you want to say that's my
I get that. He has not been very good, and he's you can. I don't know what to say about the linebacking corps once you get out of your stars, but Williams has been good, so we'll see what happens. What's the next comment?
Just as bad as a hard on for Milano. Let's relax there. Mr. Fox says I wouldn't worry about the Bills. The game meant nothing. I won't go that far, but you did say the stakes. You talked about that earlier in the show. The stakes is sometimes it's hard to get up when the stakes don't feel quite as high.
Look, I'll give the defense. Look, after the first 2 drives, I was like, I hate this defense right now because they've been an issue at times this season. But they hunkered down. They got better. I still have long-term concerns about them. No doubt about it. I don't want to see the Bengals. I don't want to see the Ravens. I think the Bills defense will have some issues against those teams because, again, especially the Bengals, hopefully they're not going to get close. But I do think there's some issues with the defense. But again, I don't think this game made me think of them in terms of that. It's kind of
4 starters out. 4 starters out.
Yeah, exactly. 4 starters out. I mean,
it matters. It does matter.
A big thing.
Spector was an eyesore, and Cam Lewis, to credit to him, making up for it in the second half with a beautiful interception. But Cam Lewis was terrible.
How'd you feel about Von Miller today?
He is okay. Got pretty good job at rushing the passer. He doesn't finish. He got smoked on a 4th down play. He got caught inside. Mate got around him.
He hasn't really
running full speed all the time either. That kind of annoys me, but
he hasn't really done much since he came back from his suspension. I thought he was better, but he hasn't really done much. It feels like.
No. Richard wants to know, Joe from Queens, what does your sweater say?
Oh, it just says Christmas is canceled. It says Christmas is canceled.
Christmas is canceled. Michael Scott from The Office. I love that shit. All right, I want to get to one more comment here, and then we're definitely going to get out of here. Actually, 2, because now one came across that I just want to tease a little bit at the end. But anyway, Leanne King says, I'm hoping Kansas City wins so Josh could get healthy. Number 1 seed, blah, 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 blah. A true Super Bowl contender could play anywhere or anyone, anywhere. Just my opinion. It's not a bad opinion. A lot of people share that. I don't agree because I do think the number 1 seed matters. I've been fighting with people on social media over this, this past weekend. You can't tell me it doesn't matter. not having to play a football game and being guaranteed a win, having a bye, is the biggest gift you can get in the playoffs. It's bigger than having a home field advantage. It's bigger than everything else. And for anyone who doesn't agree, again, just go back to last year when the Bills as the 2 had an easy game against Pittsburgh without TJ Watt. Well, who the hell? Mason Rudolph was their damn quarterback. The Bills were never going to lose that game. They won the game, but they got Bernard and Benford hurt in that game, and they ended up losing to the Chiefs because of that largely. So the number 1 seed does mean a lot. I think a lot of fans hold on. A lot of fans are bracing themselves for the inevitability that they're going to be the 2 and not the 1. So they just want to accept it. What were you going to say?
Well, I was going to say that I think when you think about the 1 seed, I know you think about the bye, and I'm the same way. I think about the bye first and foremost is kind of my big thing. But they have lost at home 2 straight years in the playoffs, and I think that might be why maybe some are like, do we care about the 1 seed all that much because of the home game? I'll say this: if let's just say the Houston Texans, we'll just say we're the number 1 seed right now, I would probably rather, even though they won this year by a field goal and Josh had like the worst game ever, which I don't think he would do it again. I would rather play in. I don't say. Well, I would rather play in a dome. Playing in a dome, I would have to think about it because I would be like, you're in a dome. We saw the last 2 weeks where they scored 40+ points in a dome.
Look at the comment too. This is the one I was going to wrap with anyway. So perfect segue. Brian Hack said, example 256, why a dome should have been built.
I mean, look, they're not. I'm just saying, like in terms of like they scored 40+ in a dome back-to-back weeks. I would have to think about, but because it's Kansas City, and the Bills have won in Kansas City 3 years in a row in the regular season.
Yep.
So like I can be like, I don't think the weather is going to be like, I wouldn't say the same as here, but like it's going to be cold but I would like the number 1 seed, but it's mostly because of the bye. I don't really particularly care about like the playing at home. I mean, look, the playing at home would be awesome. The city would be electric. It would be great. But I think the offense is better. I think the offense is better in a neutral site dome type of area, but I do think teams would hate to play in Buffalo way more than playing against the Bills in the dome. Do you know what I mean? Like they would despise. I think it would definitely be too tough for them in terms of they got to come here. So it's more or less like, oh yeah, they would come here and that would be great for the Bills in terms of like the opponent would be scared. Whereas for the Bills, yes, they've had that San Fran game, which was in a terrible conditions. They ran the ball down their throats. San Fran had wanted no part of it. They couldn't wait to get on the plane and get out of here. But there are all those other games, like the Bengals game in the playoffs. So I think that's where it is. But yeah, I would rather have the 1 seed on that.
The Chargers are the only team in the AFC playoff picture, I think, that if the Bills were in Orchard Park, you could say home field advantage would be huge because of the weather element of it, because the Chargers would have to be coming from the West Coast. Baltimore, Kansas City, Denver.
I'll say this.
It's not going to bother them having to play in the elements. It's going to be the crowd and the energy from the crowd and, not being able to call audibles at times and things like that would be the bigger advantage than the actual cold, shitty weather itself, unless you're playing the Chargers.
I would also consider this. If you play Pittsburgh, so Pittsburgh, let's just say they get the 3 seed, you're the 2. You play against them in the divisional round. Yes, you would play them in the divisional round if everyone wins that wild card weekend. Don't underestimate the Steelers fans traveling because they are good. They're a good traveling fan base, and the Steelers are much better this year than they were last year. So maybe there's more excitement. Like I'm not going to pretend I'm a Pittsburgh fan, but they could kind of get into that stadium a little bit more because they travel really well.
I would, if you're trying to avoid Baltimore, look, Pittsburgh and Kansas City on Wednesday is a big game for 2 reasons. Number one, if the Chiefs lose, the Bills are still very much in the hunt for the 1 seed. If Pittsburgh wins, which they would, of course, if Kansas City loses, it's a double banger because you want Pittsburgh to win the AFC North, because I think 99.5 out of 100 Bills fans would rather see Pittsburgh be the 3 and come to Buffalo in the divisional round against the 2 than Baltimore winning that division. If Pittsburgh and Baltimore finish in a tie right now, I think Pittsburgh would win that division. So, yeah, man, sure, it's a really, really big game. Last thing here, I don't even want to get into this, but kind of a teaser I want to set up for tomorrow. Brian Hack said this team relies on opponents making mistakes more often than not. I do think there's some truth to that in the Bills defense. And I'm going to talk about that on the show tomorrow. I'm going to watch the game film. I'm going to get up early and spend some time.
I won't be listening. So
you will not be listening. No. You will not be watching. I accept that. But hopefully we're going to get together for a live show on Thursday. And I have done a show together once before live, but it wasn't just us two. It was I, and Joe Yurden. So
I want to guess. Can we get a three? We should find someone to come. Yeah.
Well, we're round table. You know who we're talking about. We're gonna see if we can make that work.
All right. We'll try someone.
I don't know if anyone else likes you though besides that guy.
There's a couple people who tolerate me, but they won't say it online. But we can find some people. But we're gonna talk about Cobra Kai. That's what we're gonna talk about the live show. We'll talk about we're gonna recap that debacle. And who knows what else we'll do. We'll figure it out.
All right, guys, it's going to do it for the show. Like I said, I'll be back tomorrow. No show or just some highlight clip show or some shit like that on Wednesday. And then we'll see how the rest of the week pans out. Like I said, hopefully Joe and I will be together live on Thursday night. Joe from Queens. I'm Patrick. We'll be back. Brand new show tomorrow.